Yeah, they're irregular. It's always there. We'll give it a couple seconds and then we'll introduce you.
Sure.
And just start talking.
All right.
I didn't pay attention to see if there's any other targets. I get too distracted. I start focusing on one thing.
One thing, and the other destroyers come up behind you and just
somebody hit
lay
me
a
hard.
bunch of torpedoes at you. Someone's firing at you.
Yeah. This guy.
Oh, it's a motor. Yeah, it is.
Huh? Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Let's see.
You got stuff inbound, dude.
Get him. Barely, maybe one. Nope. Missed them all. Yeah, I'm terrible at this.
And the reload is inside that box, right?
Yeah, this is the reload time. It's the full 30 seconds, just like the actual thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. All right. We'll start it off. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay.
Name, rate, rank, all that cool stuff.
So my name is Mario Mares, Mares. I am an OS1 Operations Specialist First Class Petty Officer, United States Naval Reserve, retired. I was in the reserve program from basically 1984, I believe in June 1984 to about 2005. Again, June 2005. So I completed a complete 21 years service with the United States Navy. Basically, as an operations specialist, I'm the kind of person who works in CIC, Combat Information Center. The person who's actually working on radars inside this very darkened room with a few blue lights, very cold inside there. Generally, as an operations specialist, my job would be working in navigation, some operations in the sense of air warfare, anti-submarine warfare, naval gunfire support, tracking targets, distinguishing those targets, evaluating those targets, and identifying, basically what those targets are that are coming towards my radar screen that my radar identifies. I have other people who support me as well. The EWs, electronic warfare, they would be helping me. Sonar techs, STs would be helping me as well for ASW. And my ship that I was on was various ships. I've been on 4 different ships. The first ship I was on, I'll show you with my hat here, was the USS Gray, FF-1054. And that ship was my first ship I was on. I'll tell a little bit more about her as we're doing this interview. She is a Knox-class frigate, an old FF type, built back in the Vietnam War, basically. But they still had a few of them in reserve. The next ship I was on was USS Duncan. This is Oliver Perry class. This one here is FFG-10. So it's a fast frigate guided missile. Was stationed on that ship for quite a while, almost 7 years. Then the next ship, get back to Duncan later, was USS Wadsworth, FFG-9. My third unit, stationed over in San Diego, was my third ship as a reservist. And unfortunately, Danny, my last ship, which I do not have a ball cap for, I misplaced it. Didn't lose it, just misplaced. That's a big difference between losing something and misplacing something. USS McCluskey, FFG-41, another Oliver Perry class ship. Right now, though, I am on another U.S. Navy ship, USS Iowa, BB-61. She's not under sail. She's permanently a museum ship now over here in San Pedro, California. And I've been stationed on board this ship for about 4 years, 4 or 5 years, working in operations. Those are those guys that you'll see in kind of like their dungarees, maybe some sort of messed up shirt that they use for painting, or a shirt that's going to be torn up and get burned because they're welding stuff. So I do a lot of construction, deconstruction on board the ship. One of the jobs I was doing on board the Iowa was actually a lot of painting on board the ship when she became a museum ship. Then I switched over to tours because I knew the history of Iowa, being a former Navy guy, former sailor. Used to actually being on a ship and actually share stories on board the ship, knew about the history about the battleships. So I became a tour guide. And now recently, right now, currently, I'm in the education department, working with education with Danny here, and who's playing this game, World of Warships. I'm here observing as an operations specialist. I'll be there on radar, so I will make sure that no ships come in contact, but I'm more in line to doing this interview. So those are the ships I've been on right now. So any questions you have about the reserves, Danny, I'll just go ahead and mention right after high school in August. Was it August? No, it was in July. My dad came up to me. I was eating breakfast with my brother across the table. And we're at my mom's home, and he just came up to me and asked me, "So what are you doing this summer?" I told him I wasn't doing anything. "Why? What's up?" "Well, let's go get hooked up." "What do you mean get hooked up?" "Let's get yourself signed up for the Navy." And I looked at the calendar behind me on my wall there, and I looked at him and said, "Okay, sure, why not?" And my dad was the one who recruited me. My father was a YN, SS, so he's a yeoman, submarine service. He has a submarine service pin. And he was the one who actually signed me up over in Chavez Ravine in downtown Los Angeles, right nearby Dodger Stadium there. And before I knew it, I was getting ready to sign up, and I was in. And my dad told me as soon as I signed my paperwork, you're officially into the U.S. Navy. So I started up in June, didn't go to boot camp until August. Went to boot camp in San Diego with a whole bunch of other recruits, a bunch of shower shoes. Most of you guys probably know some of these shower shoes. You know that terminology. You're nothing. You're worse than the boot. And you get your head shaved, and you start learning what it's like to be in the military service. Well, having a father in the military myself, my dad was on submarines for close to 40 years, and I learned some things from him. So I was more than happy to sign up, and I got myself in, and I was in boot camp. Got out of boot camp on my birthday on October, and the next thing I know, I was getting ready to go to my A school. Now, an A school is a specialty training school where the Navy has special rates, different jobs of what you're going to be doing in the Navy. But my A school, OS school, was over in Virginia. All right, so be it, in Virginia. But it was for 18 weeks. And I said to myself, well, it's October. I just got out midway October, and I'm getting ready to go to school, to my college, because being a reservist, I was going to go to college instead. And that was going to totally interfere and mess up my schedule going to college. So I did not go to A school. Instead, what I did was I went to, oh my gosh, what was that called? It was just a seaman apprentice training. And there's a school that tells you all the different jobs that the Navy offers, gives you a little taste of what it's like, mostly a taste of what it's like to be a boatswain's mate. That's a BM. My dad told me, you don't want to be a boatswain's mate. They also told you how to be on the bridge. Again, boatswain's mate rate. Didn't want to do that. And they showed you how to chip and paint. They showed you how to don fire gear. They show you what it's like to be in a CBR, chemical, biological, radiological warfare. They showed us how to do that kind of stuff. And just basically a little bit more advanced naval etiquette and what it's like to be in the service. Well, when I signed up back in June, my dad and I, we sat down, we looked at this pamphlet, and we looked at all the different rates in the Navy. And he says, you don't want to be a boatswain's mate. You don't want to be an aviation boatswain's mate. Not that I didn't want to, I'm not that big and strong, and I guess my dad's fear was I was going to get blown over the side. So, boatswain's mate was not my thing. But then when I took the ASVAB, which is a entrance exam for us to join the military, I scored pretty high in certain technical aspects. And those technical aspects was leading me to become either an EW, an OS, an ST, an ET. ET is electronics tech. Okay, those are all the guys that know all the wires and stuff. And I said to myself, well, what's an OS? My dad said, oh, an OS. Well, that's a radar man. Okay, back in the day, the OSs, they were radar men back in World War II and whatnot. So I guess the OS rate was changed. The rating badge was still the same. It's still a little oscilloscope that we have on our shoulders, which I don't have one on my any of one of my hats. I think I have it on my first hat. Mm-hmm. It's right there. It's this little oscilloscope, and that was my rate. So when I got out of boot camp, I was not officially a striker as an OS, striking to become an OS, but that's what I was going into. So I completed boot camp, completed CNR training, and I was assigned to my first ship. So here I was, back in '84, now a recruit, seaman apprentice I think I was now. It's just an E2. And my first ship was right over here at Long Beach, which is now a big giant container facility. If you ever come out here to Long Beach, California, the naval base no longer exists. I miss it. I wish they converted it back, but that's not going to happen. But my ship was stationed there. Now, I get on board that ship, salute on board, salute smartly, showing my paperwork, send me down to personnel. Then the personnel guy came by, took me over to my first officer. Well, this officer was there, I think it was a Lieutenant JG, comes by and says, Seaman Mares, sir, we're going to go ahead and get you hooked up with the boatswain's mates. Let me give you a call and get this one chief. And so he reaches for the phone, and I said, well, sir, respectfully, I was guaranteed an OS rating. Excuse me? Sir, I was going to be an OS, an operations specialist. It's in my paperwork. And he looks at the paperwork, stares up, looking it over. He gasps, gets the phone again, calls up, okay, I'm going to send you to operations then. So he was getting ready to send me into being a boatswain's mate. It's a good thing I spoke up and told this officer that I was getting ready to be an OS, and I did not want to be a boatswain's mate because my dad told me about how they're always chipping and painting, they're always out there on the weather decks. It's always cold, or it's always hot, it's always windy, it's always whatever. The worst case situation. Now, boatswain's mate that are out there, BMs, I appreciate all the work you've done, but that was not going to be my rate. And we do have a boatswain's mate, right, Danny? who's
Yeah.
with us, and he's done a great job. But I knew that was not the job for me. So I report on board to CIC, and there was this one third class. He showed me around, showed me where my rack was, showed me where chow was, and showed me where the head was. The head being the bathroom, Navy terminology there. And the next thing I knew, we were shoving off. We were getting ready to go out to sea. So this OS guy, this third class, I don't recall his name, says, stick with me. Just stay with me. And he showed me around, took me up to CIC again. And this is your station. This is where you're going to be working at. I said, very well, got it. And basically, I learned the job as I was on the ship. And the funny thing is, though, is being a reservist on a naval ship, a lot of those guys, they don't look at us equally. That's pretty substantial. I'm not sure if it's the same way now. I'm sure that it still is in the Naval Reserves. That people who are going to be thinking about joining the reserves or are in the reserves right now, they don't look at us too keenly. They look at us like we're some bug under a rock. And that's where I got my first nickname, being the bug. And in fact, I think on this hat, I even drew out a little bug on my hat. And because I was asking these guys how to do this, how to do that. And I said, you know what, dude? Modest, you're just a bug, man. You're just bugging me. Just get away from me. And again, being a reservist, being an E2, okay, yeah, I was a bug for these guys. I was bugging them. I needed to know how to do their jobs. Well, there were several instances where these regular guys, they were trying to teach me a thing or two. And every once in a while, I'll pick up with a second class petty officer. And first class petty officers, they rarely train me. But it was the second classes that I remember. I remember a petty officer French, OS2 French. I remember an OS2 at the time. He later became an OS1 McElroy. I remember this one guy named Tim. I remember my LPL, my leading petty officer, Persic. He brought me up pretty well, and I barely remember any of the chiefs because I was brand new. I was not really scared, but in a sense of who I knew who to talk to and who I knew who to avoid. And again, you have some third class, some E3 seamen who were, they're trying to teach me a thing or two, and not training wise, but trying to like pick a fight with me. Because they want to see what us reservists would do. Well, I didn't take too kindly of that. So there was a few times where some of these active duty guys, who I don't want to name, try to pick a fight with me, and they try to test you, and they try to see if you're up to snuff. Well, I was up to snuff. I knew I was in the Navy. In the time that I signed up, it was the Sea and Air Mariners, a SAM. And the SAMs, let me go back on this a bit. The SAMs is a program back in the 80s. And the Sea and Air Mariners were people who wanted to join the military, but join the reserves only. Now, most of the times when people sign up, they go active duty. They're in it for 4 years, doing active duty service. If they are a TAR, which the name's, the acronym slips me right now, but they're a reserve program as well. But they serve a few years active, and then they go into reserve programs. For me, being a SAM, I was just total reserve. No active duty. The only active duty I did was 2 weeks out of the summer and the weekends. So living here in Downey, California, it's an easy trip to go down to Long Beach, and get on board the ship, on board USS Gray. And that ship was Haze Gray underway. Every weekend we were out to sea. Now here's the thing, and this is why the active duty guys had some animosity towards us. Those guys would be out to sea. They would pull in to the port, pick us up, and go back out to sea again. So they weren't too happy about that. And a lot of times, they want to be with their wives, they want to be with their girlfriends, they want to be somewhere else but training us reservists. And so they didn't like us too much. Okay, well, whatever. Hey, you still got to train us, buddy. So by the time I was in 84, 85, about 86, I was on board USS Gray. By the time I was getting ready to be an E3 seaman, not even a playoffs yet. I'm not even there yet. I'm thinking about it. The Gray decommissioned. No, wait. Yeah, Gray decommissioned. Back in 86, 87. So they're getting ready to transfer me now to a newer ship. Now, being on the Gray, which I really liked being on that ship. I thought that was the best ship ever. It had a 5-inch mount, a single mount. It had B Patimus, which is a basic point missile defense system, which is just a Sea Sparrow missile launcher back aft. It had a helo. Had a strange looking mast and exhaust smokestack called a MAC, okay, which is an acronym for both a mast and a smokestack, okay, called a MAC. And I thought it was, man, this is a great ship. I love this stuff. Well, now the thing is, though, is that a lot of these ships back in the 80s were coming up with these Sea-Wiz. My ship did not have Sea-Wiz, did not have that R2-D2 back in the aft. Now, there were other ships in our squadron in Long Beach, the USS Lang, I remember, and she was part of our squadron, that had a Sea-Wiz on there. And I said, dang, man, I'd like to be on that ship. At least I'd be better protected being on that ship. So when Gray got decommissioned, my next ship I was on was USS Duncan. Now that ship there, brand new, quote unquote brand new, Oliver Perry class. And it's a gas turbine engine ship, not a oil burner like USS Gray. Bit faster. Had a missile launcher, hence the word FFG, being guided missile. It was a fast frigate as well. And basically had the one thing that was missing on Gray, and that was the Sea-Wiz. Now, I only had a single Sea-Wiz on that ship. But again, that Oliver Perry class, I was hoping I would get on an Oliver Perry class with a Sea-Wiz, and it didn't have one. I was, oh, man. So here I am going as a reservist on board another ship without the Sea-Wiz. Okay, well, whatever. So, getting on that ship, I was an E3, and eventually became an E4 with training, and did a pretty good job. I enjoyed working on that ship as well, and again, a reservist on board that ship, and going in there 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out of the summer, coming in from Downey to Long Beach was a piece of cake. But unfortunately, Long Beach was going to be decommissioned. Not the ship, but the base. So the base is being decommissioned. And my ship, the Duncan, was getting ready to go down to San Diego. So I had this one chief. Oh, gosh, what was that one chief's name? This one OSC. I can picture his face. He was a reservist as well. And he came up and asked me, so, Modest, do you want to go down to San Diego all the time. Now, San Diego from Downey, takes quite a while. And I said, you know what? I'll give it a shot. Ship got transferred down there in November, and I started going there October. No, excuse me. Got transferred down there in October. So I went there in November, December, New Year, January. And this chief finally came up to me and says, so, you think you can make it? You know, Chief, I'm in my 5th year now of my 8 years in. Yeah, you know what? Well, what the hell? Let's give it a shot. So here I was, a reservist, going down to San Diego. And I would make that trip down to San Diego 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out of the summer. And just getting down to San Diego, you would have to leave Downey by about 3:30 a.m. Something that a lot of reservists don't want to do. They don't want to get up early in the morning. And that's, again, another animosity that the active duty guys don't like about his reservists. They might show up, they might not show up. In a lot of cases, there are some slackers that don't show up. Slackers that, reservists who skate. They don't show up. They're there for maybe once or twice in the year, and we don't see those guys anymore. Okay, I guess they don't like to be on the ship, then they go on a shore billet. So for me being an OS, going on shore, that is not the thing for me. That is probably one of the worst things I can ever have happen to me as an operations specialist, working on radars, looking for ships, looking for aircraft, being on a shore billet. So when my time came up, I re-enlisted, and they asked me, you want to go on a shore billet? No, I do not want to go on shore. I like being on the ship. Being a sailor, you should be on a ship. Now, my dad, understand, in the number of years he was in the service, he was on subs. Okay, and he was serving on board submarines. They're always out to sea. They're hardly ever in port. Now, granted, they're in port at times, okay, for maintenance and whatnot. But for me to be on a shore billet, that was not my thing. So eventually I worked my way through becoming a pretty good OS. I knew a lot of the jobs that I needed to do, basic jobs that I needed to do. One of the things that they taught me was surface watch. And I was exceptional at that. I was looking at every little blip on my scope. Every little wave I would track. Every little cloud that drifted by I would track. Now, obviously, being a young reservist, going there once a month, we're not used to tracking ships. So every once in a while I'll track like an island, which was pretty silly to do. But, coming in once a weekend, I didn't know that I was tracking islands or clouds or waves. So I eventually learned the trick of the trade, adjusting my freaks on my radar screens, doing what I need to do to make sure that everything's up to speed. And I became a pretty efficient surface tracker. Well, eventually they had me on tracking aircraft. And I was never very good at aircraft. Aircraft, they move pretty fast, and the blips on the aircraft are very small, so it's kind of hard for me to distinguish the aircraft there. But when it came down to navigation, which is another job that I did, I was extraordinarily good at navigation. I made sure that we were always centerline. When we're going down the harbor, I was making sure that we weren't drifting too much. And again, that was one of the jobs as an operations specialist I would do, is during sea and anchor details, taking the ship out to sea. Every once in a while, we'll go into a simulated minefield, and it would ask us to navigate ourselves through that minefield. And I was really good at doing that, making sure we didn't hit any mines. So, one day, the ship was getting ready to do a Westpac. Now, for me, as a reservist, I've never done a Westpac. Okay. At the time now, I was in my 9th year. This is now, what, 92, 93, on board Duncan. I said, you know what? I think I want to do this. I want to do a Westpac. As a reservist, I want to know what it's like to be in active duty. Because if I want to make chief or something higher, even a first class, that's something that I want to do, and it will look good on my jacket. My service jacket, where we keep all of our records and all of the accomplishments, all the things we've done, all the things we've done wrong, is in our service jacket. So I went on a Westpac with USS Duncan. We sailed out from San Diego, went up north, passing San Francisco, and sure enough, when we passed San Francisco, we caught up with another group of reserve ships, and that big earthquake hit. That earthquake hit in San Francisco. 3 ships coming out from San Francisco turned around and went back to San Francisco. I guess they needed them for their ship service diesel engines, the SSDGs, the service diesel generators. And they went back, and we kept sailing along with our squadron from San Diego. Went up to ADAC. ADAC, not a place to go. Okay. A lot of Navy guys, they mention about Guam or Diego Garcia. ADAC falls right in there with them. It's windy, it's cold, it's windy. And I remember one time my ship was trying to pull into port. As we were pulling in, we were getting ready to lash up, and the ship was being pulled away from the pier, from the winds, and they were actually pulling the pilings off the pier.
Wow. So
we had to go back out to sea, and we went around to around the island where there's less wind, and we tried anchoring out. Well, same situation, windy there, and we're dragging anchor. Not a thing to have happen. You don't want to drag anchor, okay? Because eventually you're going to run aground to the island. So we have to go back out to sea again and weather this storm. Well, in the meantime, we're doing this. We were refueling the entire squadron. And this was a time where I actually had to stay awake pretty much for 67 hours, which was ridiculous. And the reason why that happened was because I was part of the unrep detail, the underway replenishment detail. As a reservist, they want me to get experience. Okay, Manas, you want to get experience? You're on the unrep detail. All right, very well, Chief. So I took full advantage of that. Little did I know that I'll be on the unrep detail for like 2 or 3 evolutions. And on top of that, we had to set sea and anchor. So I was on a sea and anchor detail. Well, dang, man, I'm not catching any Z's. I'm like this, cross-eyed and arms crossed and drink coffee. That's not working for me. Manas, you awake? Yeah, I'm fine. Stay awake on that console. Yeah, console's clear. There's nothing going on. Come on, it's the island. Jeez, there's nothing there. Good gravy. There's not even a boat out here. Well, you know, I did my duty. Okay, I stayed to watch. I stayed up. And even though I wanted to snap back at that chief, there's nothing out here. You know, I knew military etiquette. You don't do that kind of thing. Okay? So you stood your watch. And that right there, I think, changed the perspective of the active duty guys towards me. They knew that this reservist is true to form. He's not going to be the kind of guy who's going to slack off. And I didn't. I stood my watch. I was there on time. I completed my watch. I passed my information down smartly to the next person to relieve me. And that was a real game changer for me, because I think a lot of active duty guys, they saw, yeah, Mares, yeah, this guy, he's got his act together. And eventually, going down from Adak, Alaska, going down to Busan, Korea, and then eventually going down to Japan, to Sasebo, Japan, and then making the long trek from Japan to Hawaii, and then Hawaii back to San Diego. I enjoyed it. I loved it. Now, did I want to join active duty? No. Because at the time I was going to college, I was trying to become a teacher. So I'm here going to college, getting money from the government, doing my bit with the military, going to college, da-da-da-da. And as you can see with my hat, all the flags that you see on there are all the ports that I've been through. Now, getting back to Gray, the first ship, you see the countries that are there: Mexico, Canada, United States. Now, you're probably saying, U.S., really? Well, because I actually stepped foot, not just in the U.S., but different ports in the U.S. San Francisco, San Diego, Long Beach. So if I step foot on U.S. territory, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, I put a flag on there. Now, when I went to Canada, my first AT, that's annual training, my first AT was in Victoria, British Columbia. Beautiful place. And it was in '84 where they had the World Expo. So I was all game. I was like, oh, this is great. I'm going on a trip to Canada thanks to you fine people, Nick Schneider here, and you, Denny, you taxpayers. You're paying them for my trip, and I thank you. Now, granted, I'm training to go to war. Okay, so be it. So, here I was on board Duncan, and a lot of people ask me this question: did you serve in war? And my war record is no, I did not. Came close in the Persian Gulf War in '91, okay, where we're getting ready to fight Iraq. I was really close. My ship was really close to going out to sea, and I remember telling my folks, "Mom, Dad, got some news to tell you." So my mom sits down at the kitchen table, same kitchen table that my dad asked me to get recruited. Dad's on the other side of the table. So, yeah, we're going active.
I'd just like to pause real quick.
Sure.
The chat kept trying to give Danny some advice.
I'm going to be terrible regardless of what advice I get, even if I try to follow it. So
yeah. So, Mario, did you get a chance to talk about the flag story?
No, not yet. That gets in there. That gets in there. Yeah. So, but let me finish this story off with the Persian Gulf War. So we were getting ready to be going out to sea. I'm assuming to relieve the guys that are out there. So, unfortunately, the war was, or fortunately, the war was over. It was over. Wham, bam, and yeah, it was finished.
I heard what you were about to say.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I stopped myself. And it was over. And at that point, I already said goodbye to my friends. Hopefully, I'll see you guys soon. I don't know when. Talk to all my teacher assistants. Say goodbye to a bunch of girls. Norma Silva, I still remember you. Still remember you, Norma. To this day, and that was what? How long ago, Norma?
Sure, your wife's not watching?
Oh, she's not watching. She knows. I tell her all my history. But it was kind of like, oh my God, we're not going. So I come back to work. Oh, I thought you were going. Well, they're not sending me. So I was bummed. I was bummed out. I wanted to go. Now, I had 9 junior friends or relatives that all went. The next one next to me, the next lowest guy next to me was my cousin Gabriel Lara. He was in the Army, West Germany. He was in charge of a missile battery. And he went. And then the lowest ranking friend of mine. He was in the Air Force Reserve. He just got out of basic, got an accelerated 3 months training in desert warfare, and he was gone. And here I was, 9 years in, well, back in 91, maybe about, 7 years in, okay? The most senior guy of all these people that I know, and I'm sitting on the sideline. Now, you don't want to be on the sideline. You want to be on the field. My job as a reservist is to train with the active duty guys to go on the field. And I joined the military to get on the field. And I didn't go. And I was bummed. I wanted to go. Now, my cousin Gabriel told me, Mo, you don't know like it. It's like Barstow. It's like Barstow, man. It's hot in daytime. It's cold at night. You know what I liked. So, but you know what, Gabe? I signed up for this type of reason. You went, and I didn't go. So he got a few more medals than I did, and I'm still stuck here at San Diego. But even though I did not go, I was able to go to all these different countries and show our flag and be with our allies and train with our allies. Which brings up the point, Nick, of the time we were in Japan. Japan? I think it was Japan. And I was a petty officer of the watch. Petty officer of the watch is the person who checks people in and off the ship. They come on the ship, they go off the ship. And I remember one time this officer was in a desperate need to have someone as POW. Modest, you're a POW, right? Yes, sir, I am. Go get changed out right now in your dress whites. Go, right now.
May want to clarify what POW stands
so,
for.
POW is Petty Officer of the Watch. Yeah.
Not the other POW.
No, not the POW. No, not prisoner of war. No, I was a POOW. Petty Officer of the Watch. And so I got changed out, got into my dress whites, went back out to the flight deck. And as soon as I got out there were these other officers in their dress whites, and that same officer comes up to me and boom, hands me the ensign. I grabbed the flag. Go put the flag up. So, very well, sir. So I'm out there putting the flag up in Japan. And this is during the time that I do in the Westpac. So there's other ships that are out there with us, that are tied alongside with us. Canadian ships, Japanese mostly, US. Well, to make a long story short, I know that you need to snap that flag on and raise it up smartly. Raise it up fast. Okay, this is morning colors. Well, in my haste, being a kind of a brand new POOW, I hooked it up wrong. And I actually put the flag upside down. So I raised it up real fast. I didn't even notice it. When I was raising it up, I just pulled the line, tied it down, and I looked up smartly. Oh, no. And I can hear the officers behind me. They're swearing. I can hear them. They're not happy. They're still saluting. And our national anthem is going. And you cannot believe how long that national anthem is, with our flag upside down. And then when that was over, we heard the Canadian one, we heard the Japanese one. I'm there saluting. Can I bring the flag down? So by the time the third national anthem was played, the officer comes up to me. Modest, bring it down smartly. So I unlashed it, brought it down smartly, rehooked it, brought it back up smartly, and saluted. I thought I was going to lose my crew. I thought I was going to lose it. Oh my God. I swear to God, I was not going to have that happen again. I made sure that national ensign was going to be raised correctly. And even though I'm part of the education program, and every once in a while, they come up and ask me, Modest, we want you to do colors. And right off the bat, that That story comes back into my head. Make sure you hook it up right. Make sure you hook it up right.
It's
Don't look at-
traumatized, folks.
and maybe it is, but to this day, I still think about it. I still think about that story and get a little grin on my face. But getting back to my naval career, as soon as I know it, 7 years on board Duncan is over. I decommissioned Duncan. Now, I decommissioned Gray first. But then before then, I decommissioned Long Beach Naval Station. And then, no, Gray was first, the Naval Station was next, and then I decommissioned Duncan. So I've decommissioned one base and 2 ships. And my next ship, USS Wadsworth, FFG 9. Now, the crazy thing, I'm going from FFG 10 to FFG 9. You would think you would start with FFG 9 and move up, but no, they're sending me down. I'm not sure, maybe it was that flag incident or what. But now, here's a ship that has the Seaways system, and I was pretty excited about that. Yeah, okay, I got a Seaways. I'm protected now from anti-shipping missiles. Same Oliver Perry class, same training, but now I'm a second class, getting ready to become a first class petty officer. By the time I came on board Wadsworth, I was getting ready to get myself tested to be an E6. And thank God for Duncan and doing that trip, because I moved up really fast. My prestige level went up really quick. And the chiefs recognized it. The officers recognized it. I stood my watches. I was vigilant. And as a reservist, hey, you know what? I'm in the military. I have to be vigilant. And I knew what my job was. If the time came up with the call coming down and say, we're going somewhere, I said, very well, sir. Let me get my bags packed and I'll be right there. When do you need me? I need you by this time. Very well, I'll be there. And you can always rely on me being there. Now, I'm not saying that none of the reservists did that. A lot of the reservists did that. But every once in a while, you'll find some slacker, some jaffer, as we called it on board Wadsworth now. You're probably saying, what's a jaffer? Well, jaffer is an acronym that those active duty guys like to call us. And they use a little slang in there. I won't mention it, but I'll give you the gist of it as just another reservist, Jaffer. So here I was as a reservist going on board my 3rd ship. And Wadsworth was a good ship as well. I enjoyed being on that. Same class as the Duncan, so Oliver Perry class. But now my flags have changed. Now I was able to catch up with the ship. And one of the places I catch up to it is in Malaysia. And going down to Singapore. Now, cool story about that one. Here I was as a reservist trying to catch up to the ship. So normally a lot of reservists get their orders to go to the airport and catch up to the ship. So they fly you out there. Well, my dad comes by and we go out to dinner. And then we head out to LAX, that's the airport over here in LA. And I'm getting ready to go on the plane, and they stop me. And they say, you can't get on the plane. You're too late. And I was shocked. I said, what do you mean I'm too late? You have to be, at that time, 3 hours before you have to catch up to the plane. Now, we're all used to that now, but back then in the late 90s, this was something new. So I missed the plane. And am I going to miss ship's movement? Yikes! I've never missed ship's movement. Of all the times I was a reservist, never had that happen. And I was a bit nervous. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? Here I am. I'm going up for first class. I'm not going to make E6. I'm going to be in E5, maybe even lower because I missed ship's movement. I'm going to a foreign country where I have to find a ship. The next day, I get on a plane, flew out there. And we had a medical emergency. Great. So we had to stop off. Guess where? Adak, Alaska. Yeah, my favorite place. I said, dang, I've been here twice now. Man, I can't believe it. Guy had a heart attack. Took care of him. Got off the plane. Continued the flight. But now I'm not only 18 hours behind, I'm now another extra 3 hours behind on top of that because of this medical emergency. So, get into Nagoya, Japan. Japan is already getting ready to close, but there's one more flight going to Malaysia. So I get to Malaysia, but it's not going to where I need to go. It's going to Kuantan. No, not Kuantan. Where is it? It's not Kuantan. Kuantan was my final destination. But it's taking me to the capital of Malaysia. And I'm still not catching up to the ship. If you know Malaysia, the capital of Malaysia is on one side, Kuantan's on the other side of the peninsula, and that's where my ship is. So here I am, delayed again. No more planes are leaving Kuantan from the capital there. So I'm hearing Malaysia. Great. I'm going to get hammered. The ship's probably already gone. I'm getting really anxious. I have no numbers to call the ship that I'm on my way. So the next morning, first flight out, it's like at 0600. And they're asking people who want to get on the ship. I said, I'm on the plane. Let me get on that plane. So I get on a plane, take that short hop right over the peninsula, get over to Kuantan, get in a taxi, and I'm telling the guy I need to find Navy ships, U.S. Navy ships. Well, guy looks at me. Yeah, we'll send you to Navy ships. Oh man, where's this guy going to take me? Am I going to get hijacked? Oh my God, what's going to happen? All right, fine. Just deal with it. Just go with it. Guy takes me and down this freeway, down this highway, and I see Naval Base, sign, Naval Base. And I see a second sign, Naval Base. Two. And I see a third sign, Naval Base exit. Dude, the exit's right here. He takes that third exit. Get on the Naval Base. Okay, where's the ship? Okay, I have no idea where the ship is. Get to the Naval Base. I see these warehouses there. And I'm looking for the ship. And the only way I can know the ship is the mast of the ship. Okay? So I'm looking for it. Okay, there's 3 FFGs, because I could tell their mast. One of them has got to be my ship. So he pulls through the warehouse. We're going down the pier. Nope, that's not it. And there it was, number 9. So, oh, thank God, found it. Rushed on board the ship. They looked at me, with my sea bag and my dress uniform. They looked at me, salute me on board, salute smartly, walked on board, and paid us their watch. Gets my ID. Mares, what are you doing here? Reporting on board. Okay. Signs me in. Go down to personnel office. PNs, personnel. I see them. Give them my orders. Mares, what are you doing here? I'm here to report on board for my AT. Looked at the paperwork. Okay. Go ahead to Divo. Farewell. Go up to the division officer. Sicko's there. CIC watch officer's there. And, Mares, what are you doing here? Does anybody know I'm coming on board? No one knows. No one had a clue I was coming on board. So I could have skated. Sir, I have orders right here. And he looked at my orders. I'll be damned. He is coming on board. So we take the ship from Kuantan to Singapore. 8-hour trip. I could do 8 hours in my sleep. Whatever. Okay, I stood the whole entire 8-hour watch. Big deal. Pull into Singapore. Okay, and the crazy thing is that I try to get on myself on a watch duty section in port in Singapore, and nobody wanted to take me in. Not that because I wasn't qualified, the watch section was full. Modest, you're a qualified POW. Yes, I am. Well, we don't need you. All right, fine. I go to the next day. I get into their watch section. And one of the senior chiefs looks at me. Honest, what are you doing here? Senior, no one knows I'm supposed to be here, but I'm going to be standing a watch if I can. It's okay. We don't need you. We're covered. You don't need a peasant watch. Nope. I mean, you are gun qualled, aren't you? Yes, I am. I'm gun qualled. And that's another story I'll get to you on that one. Yeah, I'm gun qualled. No, we're good. We don't need you. So the next day, I get into my third watch section. They don't need me there either. Well, what the hell? Okay, here I am in Singapore for the first 3 days, and nobody wants me. Boy, story of my life. Nobody wants me. And I said to myself, well, hell, we're here for another 6 days. I'm going to go out. And I had a hell of a time, again, thanks to you taxpayers, paying my way. Okay, the only time I had to pay for beer was when I was off the base. But other than that, I got free food, place to sleep. Went out, did my little job here and there if I wanted to in CIC. Swept the deck. I think I remember one. I think in my 5th day, I actually stripped it and re-waxed it. What the hell? And then after that, the other half of the day, I was gone. So 9 days, duty free, unheard of. Okay, never thought I would stay on a ship duty free. Now most guys, when they pull into port, they'll have one duty section, and they'll have maybe 4 days in port. Okay, so if you have the first duty section, the ship's barely coming in, you have 6 hours to enjoy yourself, and then you're on a duty section the next day. Okay, and then you're off for the next couple days. If you're really lucky, you're in the duty section right in the middle when the ship's in port. So duty section 2 or 3 is advantageous. But here I was, a reservist with 9 days duty free. And I was going, I don't like this. This is easy. This is a piece of cake. Yeah, shoot. And I re-enlisted again. And the last ship I was on, because I decommissioned Wadsworth. Now, the next hat, I don't have my hat for that ship. I misplaced it, as I mentioned to you earlier. And that was on board USS McCluskey. And that was FFG 41. So I went from FF 1054 to FFG 10 to FFG 9 to FFG 41. All frigates. And they asked me if I was qualified for standing watches. I'm qualified. Stand whatever watch you guys put me in CIC. Well, are you import watch standing qualified? Import watch standing qualified. Absolutely. Okay, we're going to put you on a pairs of the watch. Very well. Okay, I got my uniform right here. No sweat. So here I was on board Wadsworth, and standing the watch is, and usually they do this. The reservists, they usually stand the midnight watch. They do that to us all the time. After doing this now for 15 years, 16 years now, on board Wadsworth, you get used to that. I said, okay, I got the mid-watch, whatever. Okay, and you get relieved at 0400. All right. So I'm standing mid-watch, doing my thing. There's nothing out there. It's totally quiet. Every once in a while, some drunken sailor comes on board, and somebody goes off the ship, whatever. So I'm getting ready to get my watch relieved. So this one third class comes on. It's here to relieve me. And he comes by and asks me, jokingly, draw! Now, I didn't pull out my weapon. I had a weapon to my side, and if you stood to pass the watch, you do have a sight on. Obviously, I'm not going to pull my weapon out. But, I pretended. And he pretended. So, he took over the watch. And I handed my weapon to him, and you always do a weapons check when you're pay officer to watch and hand the weapon over. Well, we're doing this on the flight deck. It's cold, it's dark, there's no one there. So he's got the weapon. And I joked to him, draw. Well, this SOB, he doesn't necessarily take his weapon out to point it at me, but he does take the weapon out. Which I was kind of like shocked that he did that. Now, I'm a second class, getting ready to become a first class. I just made E6. He was an E4. Pretty smart guy, I thought, until this moment. He kind of fumbles the weapon. It doesn't go off because, fortunately, even though you do have the clip inside there, you do have it loaded, you do have the hammer back, and obviously you put the hammer back down, he drops the weapon. And the thing hits the freaking deck. To my amazement, the officer of deck who's looking at the lines doesn't come over to hear what the commotion's about. And that weapon hit the deck and it goes over the side. And we're there at the flight deck, looking over the net. We look at each other. We look at the water. Look at each other. Look at the water. Hey, you got the weapon. I relieved it. It's yours, man. It is your responsibility. And I basically walked away. Well, he comes up with some half made up story about how he was checking out his weapon and the gun slipped out of his hand. Well, they inquiry me. I told him roughly the same story. Was the magazine in the weapon? I recall it was. Quiz. Chiefs are there looking at me kind of quizzical. So the magazine was in the weapon. Yeah, I believe. Yes, it was. He comes by and says that the magazine was not in the weapon, but he's missing a magazine. So, one, he gets nailed because of his story's total BS. He gets written up for losing a weapon, and he gets written up for basically lying to the officers. He loses his crow. And fortunately, I kept mine. And I said, God dang, man, I'm not going to play draw again. I'm not going to do that again. And it scared the heck out of me. And I was just so surprised that weapon did not go off. And I remember seeing, I can still see it to this day, hitting sideways, flat, and just bouncing up and just going into the drink. And my first thought was, well, maybe I could dive for it. Dive in that water? Don't be a knucklehead. You're not going to go in there. How deep is the water? 50 feet? Minimum? Nah. So, we try to, cover our butts and avoid the whole thing. So, here I was on McCluskey. Now, McCluskey, unfortunately, has all the hats that you see: Canada, Mexico, Acapulco, Vancouver, Victoria, okay, Duncan, Sasebo, Japan, Busan, Korea, Guatemala City in Guatemala, Panama, Hawaii numerous times, Victoria, Vancouver again, Wadsworth, Malaysia, Singapore, again Hawaii numerous times, Seattle, Rose Festival. McCluskey doesn't have any pins. Okay, she's got like maybe one pin, and that's the U.S. flag. Because McCluskey, you guys never went out. And again, I'm not being used to my satisfaction. I'm being dissatisfied. Here I am now, coming up on my 20th year. And getting disheartened, you know. Missed one war. Grenada came and went. Panama came and went. Okay, Persian Gulf War came and went. Kosovo came and went. All my cousins, all my friends, aren't you in the military? Hey man, it's not my call. When they call me, I go. The ship gets mobilized, I go. And I did get mobilized on board Duncan. And we missed it because the war was over pretty quickly. And even though I served in the War of Terrorism, they gave me a medal for that, but I didn't go to Iraq or Afghanistan. I knew of some guys, some reservists, who actually went to Gitmo, that's Guantanamo Bay in Cuba, to watch the terrorists over there, and they served in the war there. That's an ugly scheme. Do not put that scheme on there. And but again, I'm not being used that way I was hoping for. And you know what? Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it kept me out of trouble. Maybe it kept me from being injured. And every veteran that I see, almost every homeless, because I do go to the Long Beach Veteran Hospital, and I talk to a few of the veterans. I listen to them. I stay quiet, and they say whatever's on their mind. I talk to other veterans. I used to talk to some of the guys on board, the reservists that were with me, from Duncan to Wadsworth, from Gray to Duncan, from Wadsworth to McCluskey. I talk to those reservists, and every once in a while we'll chit chat and we'll have a good time remembering things, talk about old times. But and even though those veterans that come back hurt, come back injured, they've done their time. You know, I thank them, and I respect them very greatly. And my dad is a veteran. He served in Korea. Yeah, he didn't go to Vietnam per se, but he was over in Guam and during the Vietnam War as a YN. And I was ready to do my time. You know, it's my time to be in. You know, kind of like Forrest Gump kind of thing. You know? My family has served in every single war except for me, and it didn't happen. So by the time my 21st year came around, 20 years came by. I stuck around for another year because of what happened with 9/11. Nothing happened then. A year later, nothing happened then. And I said to myself, you know what? It's time for me to leave. And at the time, I was with my wife, Laura Corona. She was with child. And I felt the Navy was not using me that I wanted them to. Okay? I'm trained for this. I'm ready to put myself into the position that some of the active guys are in. If they're injured, if they're killed, I step right in. Okay, I'm trained enough. I'm qualified enough. I'm ready to do this thing. And it doesn't go down. And I said to myself, you know what? How much more do I have? I mean, do I wait for the next war? Is there going to be another one? Of course there is. I made E6. Doing pretty well. I know the crew. The crew knows me. Active and reserve side. Both sides know me. And when my wife told me that she was with child, I said, you know what? Maybe it's time to go out. Maybe it's time to leave. And my mother had passed. And I dreamt of her one night. And she told me, you know, Mijo, the Navy doesn't need you anymore. Your daughter does. Made sense to me. Yeah. Navy doesn't need me. I mean, I've served my time. for 21 years, back in 84 in June. I get out 2005 in June. And I bid farewell. And the last thing I said to my CIC group, because they all wanted me to give a speech. I said, oh, man, come on, really? And they knew I was working for being a chief. And in order for me to be chief, I needed my ESWAS pin, my Enlisted Surface Warfare specialty pin. And I was working to get that pin. But again, traveling from Downey to San Diego once a month, getting there on a Friday night. So I would leave from work and get down there Friday night by 1900. I would leave work by about 4 p.m. by 1600. Drive all the way down there. Everything's packed. Okay? My dungarees, my coveralls, my dress uniforms in case I have to stand a watch. And I went there Friday night to train, to get ESWAS qualified. Active duty guys would take me around. This is what the ship service diesel generator does. This is what you need to do for supply. Mares, you don't need to know anything about the bridge. You come up to the bridge every other time. So you know about the bridge equipment. Dental, dock stuff, first aid, gas turbine engines, EWs, the whole gamut. I'm training for all this stuff to be ESWAS qualified. And it's a tough thing to do. Now, my dad, he was submarine qualified. But I think everybody has to be qualified. And in fact, all active duty personnel now have to be ESWAS qualified. Now, back then when I was in, it was kind of optional. But I was one of the first reservists, at least on board my ship, that wanted to become ESWAS. Well, here's where, again, the animosity. Those Jaffers. Just another reservist. Nah, we're not going to get them qualified. And granted, there were some things that I did not know. All right, so I went to the board and I tried to do my best. There were other reservists like myself who were coming from active duty, becoming reservists. You'd think they would get their ESWAS pins. They didn't. And there was at least 2 men that I knew who were going to get their ESWAS qualified pin, and they didn't get it because they were reservists. I said, "Oh man, what's up with that?" So I was discouraged. And by the time I left, like I said, my CIC watch group came by and asked me, speech, man, speech. You don't want to hear no speeches from me. But you know what? I do have one thing to say. And again, as an operations specialist, an OS, you do not want to be in port. You'd rather be out to sea. And I enjoyed being out to sea. And I told those guys, I told those characters, you know what, gentlemen? Sailors belong on ships, ships belong at sea. And they loved it. I just made it up right then and there. I said, wow, I better write that down. Sailors belong on ships, ships belong at sea. That's pretty good. I gotta remember that. Yeah. And there's not a day where I miss it. I miss going out to sea. And that's why now I'm on the Iowa.
The final hat of all.
Yeah. I mean, granted, we're not out to sea, but it's as close as I'll ever get. I'm not standing watches from midnight to 08, from balls to 8. I'm not going to foreign places anymore for free, thanks to you fine taxpayers. But I did get my degree coming from college. I was proud to serve. I would do it again. My daughter's now 13, and people often ask me, well, would you want your daughter to be in? If that's what she wants to do, so be it. So be it. If that's what she wants to do, I will let her know, being a female, it's going to be pretty tough. And I'm not just talking the physical. I'm talking about the mental as well. I'm not going to get all political and stuff, but we all know about situations being in the military, and especially having females. And I remember on board Duncan, when we've had our first females on board. I've had 3 females that served with me, 2 subordinates, 1 superior, one officer. And the guys would be there saying, "Well, I'm not going to listen to that girl," or "That girl, she doesn't know jack." And I remember this one OS2, I'm not going to mention names, I can still remember him. "I'm not going to listen to those orders from that woman." Dude, she outranks you. I'm an OS2. You are an OS2. She outranks both of us. You're going to follow her orders. Just do it. And this is way before the Nike commercial came out. Just do it. Just bloody do your job. And don't think about giving her a rash of crap. Because she'll write you up too. Nothing. Do your job. So, and even the subordinates, there was this one third class, and she knew the job almost as well as the active duty guys. Now, unfortunately, I don't remember names. They were here and they were gone. They were there for maybe a stretch of 4 months, and they would be somewhere else, probably on a short bill. But I could work with the women as well. If they're qualified, if they know their job, yahoo, makes my life easy. Now, granted, if they don't know their job, well, that's where I step in as a first-class petty officer. I need to train them. And that's what I did. I trained them in. Mostly the reservists. And, again, I was happy to do so. And, I do miss it. It comes up every once in a while. And strangely enough, one time, and my daughter's now 13, one time I was taking her over to Huntington Beach. We were going to play on the beach, just father-daughter time. And we're coming upon Seal Beach. And Seal Beach is the Naval Weapons Station. And she's there in the back. She must have been maybe about 7 or 8. "Hey, Dad, look, there's your ship." And I "Yeah, Mika, yeah, that's my ship." And I looked over to the base. I'll be damned. There's a guided missile frigate. I could see the mast. Wow, they're looking pretty good, Mika. Yeah, I didn't teach her that. She knows her ships. Okay. I mean, maybe she'd be great at fighting in World War II and identifying silhouettes. So we get closer, and I'm looking as I'm driving on PCH, Pacific Coast Highway. I'm looking over, trying to get the whole number. X-41! Hey, McCluskey! Holy cow! I just got off that ship not more than 3 years ago. So I was pretty excited about that, and I wanted to get back on the ship. So my daughter and I, we were there at the beach for maybe an hour. "Okay, Mika, let's go. Let's pick up our stuff. We got to go home." And she's there building her sandcastles and whatnot, looking for shells, whatever. And so I raced back to Downey, dropped her off, and I told my wife, I said, "You know what? My ship came in. It's over at Seal Beach. I'm going to go and visit it." So I raced back to Seal Beach. And sure enough, they have an open house going down. Well, heck, I'm going right on in. I'm going in there, parked the car, got out, walked to the ship. And there were 2 browse. One for all the civilians, and another one back out on the flight deck for the military guys. Well, heck, I just got out not more than 3 years ago. Shoot, I'm going in. I'm going to walk up the flight deck. I get up the flight deck, and sure enough, there's a couple of guys who recognize me. "Mares, hey, welcome back. You gonna re-enlist?" Nah, man. I'm not gonna re-enlist. Come on, you're crazy. And officer of the deck, the OD, comes up to me and recognizes me. "Peter Mares, hey, great to see you. You gonna re-enlist?" "Nah, Chief, I'm not gonna re-enlist. Come on, man. You guys are giving me a rash of crap here."
I gotta go set the overnight. See you guys in a bit.
Right. And CDO comes on. He's a lieutenant commander. And when I left, he was a lieutenant. And he sees me. Peter Mares. I said, Commander, wow. Great to see you. I see you made commander now. Congratulations. Mares, you're going to re-enlist? We'll make you a chief right now. We'll do it right now. We'll make you a chief right now. And I'm there staring at him. Let's do it. Come on. You know you want to. So I get on the phone. Yeah. Hey, Laura? Yeah, I'm going to be here on the ship for about 3 hours. And, you know, my wife's there talking to me. Yeah. Yes, I know. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yes. Yes, I know I have a family. Yes, I know. Okay, you know what? I gotta go. Yeah, I'll see you in about 4 years. Okay, goodbye. And I hung up the phone. And my wife was a little taken aback, a little frightened. Did it just re-enlist? Holy cow! No, I came back about 3 hours later and I told her I was this close. I was thinking about it. I knew I wasn't going to be chief right then and there.
Yeah.
But, to get back in, go back out to sea, that would have been cool. Yeah. So, I can talk for hours about a whole bunch of things, sea stories and whatnot.
Yeah. But
that's pretty much my naval career. I mean, I did my bit for God and country. I enjoyed it. I was proud to do it. I would do it again. I probably couldn't go in right now. I'm coming up on 52. I don't think they'll take me back in. But I think it was the best experience. And as a reservist, it was a good experience. It made me the man that I am now. My father, when he saw me leaving the ship for the last time, and I remember looking at the payoffs of the watch, permission to leave the ship. Permission granted. And when you said leave the ship, you're not coming back on. Most of the time when you go out to a port, requesting to go ashore. And I'm leaving. And I'm walking down the pier. And I looked up at my shipmates and I see them. And I see a few of them on the flight deck. And I recognize the guy who I was training. And I told him about maybe a couple months before I left. I told him, "Look, man, you got the torch. You're the reservist now. Do well. Be vigilant. Be committed. Don't slack. Don't be a jaffer." And he knew. He said, right, Mares, I got it. All right. Make us look good. Okay. And I, as a teacher now, I see a lot of these high school kids who, I'm going to join the military when they hear about my naval career. I'm going to join the Marine Corps. I'm going to join the Air Force. You know what? That's great. But you got to be committed to it. You can't come by and say, man, it's raining. I have to go to the base. I don't want to go. I have to wake up at 0400. I'm going out to sea for 2 weeks. I'm going to the plane for 2 weeks. I have to walk in the mud. Have to stand and watch. You do it. You signed up in the military. What else do you think you're going to do? You're getting ready to go to war, buddy. So don't give me that stuff. Well, I didn't sign up for this. I signed up for this to get my college money. Well, you know what? So did I. I did too. But you know what? I stayed in. I stayed in. For my country, for you, for them, for the U.S. And again, if I could, I would do it all over again. I would. In a heartbeat. I wouldn't give it a second thought. And I tell those kids, look, if you're going to sign up, be committed to it. And serve proudly.
All right. Well, we've hit about almost an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Just real quick, because it came up twice. Which battleship looks the best?
Which battleship is the best?
Looks the best.
Looks the best. Well, you know
Prettiest.
what? Interestingly, I have visited 3 of the 4 museum battleships of the Iowa class. When I was stationed here at Long Beach, I've seen New Jersey, active duty. I've seen Missouri, active duty. And my ship was an escort ship for those ships. And we would go bouncing back and forth between Long Beach and Hawaii when those ships were active duty. And now they're museum ships. Okay, New Jersey was a museum. Missouri's now a museum ship over in Hawaii. New Jersey, she's way over there in the East Coast in Canton, New Jersey. Wisconsin, Norfolk. Iowa here in San Pedro. And I visited Missouri, New Jersey recently, and here I am in Iowa. I have not visited Wisconsin. They all look good. They all look good. They all have a certain nuance to them. Each ship, active duty or museum ship now, they all have a certain nuance. Not one ship is the same. And that's the thing about Navy ships. They're all in the same class, but they all have their different personalities. And it depends on the men and women that serve on those ships. It's the crew that brings the ship alive. It's the crew that brings the ship alive. And they all look great. Even though I've not visited Wisconsin and Norfolk, I would like to go see it. I would like to go see her, excuse me. But I've seen Missouri in action, and I've seen her as a museum ship. She's now moored pier site next to Arizona. And I remember taking a photograph of Arizona inside the memorial and Missouri across the water in one picture. You could see an outline of the Arizona memorial, and through the memorial windows, you could see Missouri out there in the background. And here I was. Wow. Man. Me being a reservist, me being in the military, me seeing Missouri, beginning of the war in Arizona, end of the war. I've gone on the deck of Missouri now as a museum ship, walking on the deck where Japanese surrender was. Okay, the history about New Jersey is astronomical. She served in every war since World War II, Korea, Vietnam. Okay, she didn't serve in the Gulf. Missouri and Wisconsin did. Okay, Iowa. Wow, I mean, they're all great. There is no difference. They all look beautiful, and I'm glad to be on Iowa. Would I like to be on Missouri? Sure. Would I like to be in New Jersey? Sure. It's cold, but yeah, I'll go in New Jersey. Okay, but I like them all. So at the Iowa class ships, they all look good. Have I seen the other battleships? No, I have not. Okay, but I've seen those 4, those 3.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, Mo.
Sure.
Everyone liked all your stories.
Good.
So, you know, like you said, you have a lot more sea stories.
Oh,
that you
I
can
have a lot of
tell, and
stuff. Yeah.
at some point, we'll bring you back and you can tell us some more of them.
I could tell you a story about each one of my ships, and I gotta find McCluskey's ship, and you'll see the one flag she has. It's kind of sad, but and if you were looking closely, you might see a little Sea Whiz on the aft part of the Duncan, which didn't have a Sea Whiz, but I painted one on there, hoping, but she never did. Yeah, but yeah. I enjoyed it. Danny, thank you very much for inviting me.
Welcome.
And yeah, I look forward to doing it again if need be.
Yep. All right. And we'll be back next week. Hopefully have somebody else. If not, maybe Mario will join us again. We'll get some more of his stories. Thanks, guys, for watching and listening. And we'll see you next time.
Good day.